How do you keep your family healthy this season when it feels like everyone around you is getting sick? I use Sambicol. It's drug-free and scientifically tested to help support your immunity. Sambicol has the power of black elderberry in every purple bottle. It comes in tablets, syrup, chewables, or my kids' favorite, the great-tasting gummies. So this cold and flu season, support your family's immunity with Sambicol Black Elderberry. It's the only one I trust for my family. And best of all, my kids love it too.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight! Oh!
We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes, to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits! Everybody loves Hippo Toes! Scary Dog! Dancing at Blurnsville!
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is once again She-Ra, Princess of Power, Season 4, brought to you by the good people at Netflix. Joining me tonight from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, as she has for the previous 3 seasons, and will continue to do so until this thing finally wraps up as Voltron did, and we move on to the next rebooted 80s cartoon. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
You have no idea how hard it was to pull myself away from Disney Plus to go watch She-Ra. Not that the season was bad. I think we're in agreement this was the best season yet. But it's Disney Plus.
I have to tell you, just because of time, work, and podcast duties, I haven't had that much time to mess with Disney Plus. The last 2 nights I've actually, if I don't do the normal routine of putting on Family Guy to go to bed, I've been watching the new Elijah Schlesinger stand-up from Netflix, and then I think before that, an older Elijah Schlesinger Netflix performance. I haven't messed that much with Disney Plus.
See, I've been watching Star Wars movies all this week so far.
I want to sit my daughter down and see if I can get her to watch the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, to see if I can keep her attention long enough to maybe get her interested in seeing The Rise of Skywalker. We'll see. It's been a tough row to hoe with them, because occasionally they show glimpses of being interested in Star Wars. They like a character here or a character there, and then there's no follow-up. They're just going, meh.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I contacted my sister, who, remember, is 17, and we were buying tickets for the Rise of Skywalker premiere night. And I said, hey, do you want me to get you a ticket to come with us? You'll be on winter break, so you can go out on a Thursday night. And she actually gave me this whole, I haven't really been watching the movies that much, and I'm really not into it. And I'm just sitting there going, and you're related to me how?
Clearly you're not hearing me. I said Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like, I love you, but I don't want to admit that you're my sister if you won't come with me on premiere night dressed up as Princess Amidala. Or Queen Amidala, or whoever.
She was the queen, darling. That's what all the people say.
Yeah, sorry, Freudian slip, because I almost said Princess Leia, but then I wanted to go with the obscure reference, and I combined the two. It happens.
I think for my kids, they like the peripheral Star Wars stuff. They like lightsabers because they like to hit each other with bats.
That's just because of how you're raising them, of course.
Yeah, sure. Get woke or get punched, baby. My son likes the image of Darth Vader. We've actually been reading the Golden Books for Star Wars, and he's been bringing them to me. I send him into his room. I don't know what's going to come out of there. Could be Paw Patrol, could be dinosaurs, could be Marvel stuff. But the last couple of nights, he's grabbed a Star Wars book. So, there might be hope here. There might be a new hope.
No.
She-Ra, Season 4. So when we last left season She-Ra in season 3. It was August 2nd, 2019, and it was the episode "The Portal," where Entrapta. I refresh my memory on this, but I believe Entrapta figured out that if they opened this portal, they were going to shred the universe, and Catra ended up opening it anyway to just, I think, to prove her worth to Hordak.
Something like that. And then Queen, and I always mispronounce her name and always wanted to say just Angela, because that's obviously the way it was written, but it's Angela. You got to put the emphasis on the right letter. Manages to sacrifice herself to stop the portal from destroying the world, and the signal has gotten out to Horde Prime about where Hordak is. So when we last left, Glimmer was going to become queen, and Horde Prime was on his way.
So this picks up sometime later. First of all, this season debuted on November 5th, 2019, and Entrapta has been sent to Beast Island. Glimmer has... the episode's called The Coronation, and Glimmer has been anointed queen. And there's just sort of dealing with the aftermath of that. A lot of the beginning of this season deals with the shift in Glimmer's responsibilities and her having to take on the role of queen and not warrior princess, and all that entails.
Now, we did discuss this when we first started watching the season, but it looks they've given Glimmer a new look. She's got a new hairstyle, and she's got a slightly new outfit. But looking at it, I was trying to figure out. It looks like they slimmed her down a little bit, but I'm having trouble figuring out if that's just because of the new look.
I got the impression they aged her up a bit. Like, I don't know how much time passes between the portal and the coronation, but it does seem like it's several months later. And she looks thinner. She looks taller. I don't know how they managed to do that, because she's really squat for the first 3 seasons.
I didn't realize this until later episode, because you really don't notice it. She's wearing heels now. She's always worn flats. She's wearing high-heeled boots now. Mm-hmm. So that might be part of it. But and I guess part of it also is the outfit. She's always worn those little shorts, and now she's wearing I guess leggings or tights or whatever you want to call it. And those do give more of an illusion of her being taller and thinner.
Yes. But her face doesn't seem nearly as round and childish. I don't know if this was the intention of the animators or not, and clearly she would not have aged that much in just a few months. But she looks more, and I don't want this to get taken the wrong way, but she looks more womanly and less childlike now than she did the previous 3 seasons.
No, I agree. I always felt that they really, obviously, we don't really know how old any of these characters are, and I really think they're going out of their way to keep it like that. But I always got the impression that Glimmer was maybe the youngest. You really see, especially, I remember the Princess Prom episode where she's wearing her dress, and I remember looking at it going, wow, you look like a, elementary school kid who just found the dress up, the dress up clothes or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, she really does look a lot older. And, maybe the whole thing with her face is just the hairstyle. Maybe changing her hair just that little bit and giving her that sort of crown thing does give the illusion that her face is less round.
What I liked about Glimmer's storyline in this, from soup to nuts, because it starts with she's having a hard time, and this is a very common thing for those who were warriors in the field and now must ascend to a position of leadership of the kingdom. This was true of Thor. In his arc between the Dark World and, I guess you could say it started with the first Thor movie, but from Thor to Infinity Endgame, you had this guy who kept being told, you're going to be king, and a lot of his arc has to do with the fact that he eventually has to lead these people, which isn't something he's comfortable with or something he really wants to do deep down inside. He wants to go adventure. He wants to travel the cosmos. He wants to hit rock people with hammers. And so, his arc closes up at the end of Endgame with him going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's what, and leaving the leadership to Valkyrie. That's what he wants to do. He has to be true to himself. A very similar thing with Glimmer here, where clearly she doesn't. She learned, so I think, to value the position her mother was in, whereas they were in conflict in the last season and a little bit less in the seasons prior, but it came to a head in season 3, where she just wants to be out there and fight and be in the field and go on adventures and beat up bots, and her mother has to make the hard decisions of leadership, which sometimes don't always lend itself to go out and kill, warrior. And now that's the position she's in, and she is just brushing up against the edges. She is having a rough time. Of
course, we also have to deal with the fact that she has just lost her mother. So
yes.
In addition to having to completely change who she is and her goals, she's also dealing with, there's no other word for it, with trauma.
Yeah.
For the longest time we thought her father was dead. We'll get to that later. And now her mother is gone. And yeah, like you said, she and her mom never really got along. They didn't see eye to eye on things, but obviously they loved each other. And Glimmer really feels like there's a lot of unresolved issues there. She's sitting there going, I didn't even get to say goodbye to my mother. And, we were always fighting. And it's very hard for her to just, we get this great piece where she said she didn't take the power of the runestone yet. So if I do that, then that means my mom's gone. And I just can't accept that yet.
Later in the season, a big part of what's driving her is when she realizes the weapon, the interplanetary weapon of the first ones, is available to her, and that She-Ra is sort of a conduit of it. She is single-mindedly obsessed with getting this thing to work, because she not only does she want to wipe out the Horde, but she wants to prove herself a capable leader. And she just kind of sees it as a one-to-one thing of, if I can defeat the Horde, I am good. I am a good leader. Which brings her into conflict with She-Ra, who figures out that this thing's going to wipe the planet out if they turn it on.
I think part of that was also, you were talking about how she's brushing up against the edges, how she doesn't feel like she really fits in with being queen when she at heart is a warrior. I think part of that is also, okay, if we do this, then it's over, and then I don't have to worry about, not being in the field or being queen. I can finally just relax, as it were.
Yeah. There's no battle to fight, so I don't have to feel like I'm missing anything.
Yeah, we see repeatedly that she gets upset when Bo and Adora go into the field without her. And she does, it's obvious that everyone's treating her differently. I mean, she's queen now. She can't just keep jumping into battle, as Adora keeps reminding her. And this really sets the two against each other, because Glimmer is not ready for things to be different than they were. She doesn't want to give up who she was, and she really hates that Adora and Bo are treating her differently.
Yep. She's feeling, at a very base level, she's just feeling left out. They are the best friend squad. And now she's the porch girl. She has to stay at home while these two go off and have best friends fun together. And it hurts, I think when you just take all of the other, you break it down to its least common denominator, and deconstruct it, it's just that feeling of, I was a part of a group and I am no longer part of that group.
Exactly.
You have the one episode where she keeps trying to check in on them, and Poe keeps cutting her off and turning off his tablet. Anything else on Glitter before we move on? Glimmer. I keep calling it Glimmer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, what, wrong sparkly thing. We also see her starting to study magic a little bit, which I think is going to really come in handy when, she is reunited with her father. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I like that she's kind of getting into what Shadow Weavers teach her. And, okay, now there's a character with some incredible development. When you take it from the 1980 series where she was, I am evil sorceress, boogity, boogity, boogity.
Yeah, I thought the writers did a really good job of kind of leaving the potential threat of Shadow Weaver out there, which they, and sometimes it's good. It keeps the mystery going, where you hint at a possible malevolency, you hint at a possible evil, but don't follow up on it. You just leave it out there. They're not pulling the trigger. I mean, if Shadow Weaver is going to betray these people, they haven't yet pulled the trigger on it. So it's good. They can actually, maybe it's there and it'll, and what I'm talking about is when you have something like that, it sets other things into conflict. There's other areas of tension that arise. And so it's not always good to pull the trigger on those things because now you've removed that source of tension, which I liked. I liked the fact that Shadow Weaver spent the entire season genuinely trying to be a decent person and trying to genuinely help Glimmer, and you don't know if there's a plot afoot.
Yeah. Now, do you think there's a chance that Shadow Weaver is playing the long game, that she's going to betray the rebellion?
Most assuredly. But I think once she was ousted from the Horde, she realized that in order for her to be successful, she needs to use these dimwits to knock the Horde out, and then she can take over.
I did love the scene where she was talking about her morning ritual, and it turns out she was just making a cup of tea. That was so funny.
Oh, she's great. She's like, I'm just here in my garden. Gardening.
Yeah.
Let's move on from Glimmer and talk about my new favorite character, Double Trouble.
Oh my God, I love Double Trouble. Now, interesting note that Double Trouble's voice actress, okay, don't really know what to say because it is being performed by a non-binary voice actor who goes by they and them.
Really? Can you flesh that out for me a little bit more? I know nothing about this, and now I feel bad for barking at my daughter. It's clearly a girl. Stop asking me, because she kept going. She kept going. He at Double Trouble. I'm like, well, that's clearly a girl, and apparently I'm in some sort of ist. Go on.
The voice actor is okay. Please forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology here. I am a 100% straight woman living in the Midwest who is still trying to figure out the exact right terms. So if I say the wrong thing here, I am so sorry, and I mean no disrespect to any of our listeners. Okay, now that I've made sure that we're not going to get sued.
Well, you've made sure of nothing, but nice couching and preamble.
Hey, I got to try. No, seriously though, it's hard. It really is hard to actually remember the exact right terminology. In fact, I was actually joking with a friend of mine about the actor because this is a person who does not like to be called he or she.
Okay.
They prefer to say it's like use they or them. That is literally the terminology they prefer.
Okay.
And I was saying that that's so hard for me, and I'm like, I have nothing against it. That's their choice. If that's what they want, good for them. I just can't ignore years of journalistic writing and English studies screaming at me from the back of my head saying, that's not proper grammar.
Yeah, we've, despite George Orwell's warnings, we have dove headfirst into doublespeak. And we seem to be doing it gleefully. We are just dancing in the periwinkles of doublespeak, and that's just where we are in the culture right now. So this particular voice person is non-binary, does not identify as any particular sexuality.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which I think actually it was perfect because I don't know if you caught, but they even used they and them to describe Double Trouble in the series. And I liked it because this is a character. They're basically saying, yeah, Double Trouble is non-binary because they can change into whatever they want. There's kind of a level of genius about that.
It's funny. Jesse and I always enjoy that when Jesse and I get together and talk about these sort of highfalutin modern subjects, themes, and whether it be sexuality or race or whatever. Because, boy, you get the two white fat middle-aged guys, one from one from Appalachia, and the other from New York and the other one from Tampa by way of New York. And I think we discussed it in a fair and insightful way, but it's just like, boy, does the world not want to hear from us? But this came up in an episode of Black Mirror where you had two presumably straight. I mean, one of them was married to a woman and had a kid. I guess not that matters much these days, but it was a thing. It happened. So you have the guy Anthony Mackie, who plays Falcon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't remember what the other guy has done, but he's done a bunch. So you have these two straight male African-American fellows who are best friends, and they are playing in a virtual reality game. And in the game, they can do whatever with the characters. So it's essentially a Street Fighter game, but they've decided that instead of fighting each other where they can actually feel the pain of the attack and everything, they start having sex with each other. But one of them is a male avatar, and the other one's a female avatar. And there's all these questions that get asked, well, what does that make us? And it ends with Anthony Mackie saying, like, why don't we just kiss and figure this out? Which I think they do, and that ends up in a fist fight, and they stop talking to each other for a while. But and there's more to that story. There's more to the story, and it's worth watching if you have Netflix and are interested in Black Mirror. But the point of me bringing that up is that it is one of those things, and it goes to this particular character, and I guess in a very sort of juvenile way, that you can have people who express sexuality in a non-binary way. It's hard to put a label on it. It is driven by emotion and not necessarily by gender or sexual preference, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Now, I will also add, this is interesting seeing Double Trouble, because this was a character who appeared in the toy line and in the She-Ra comic series of the 80s, but was never actually included in the original animated series.
Okay, so we don't really know what this character acts like. Well, I guess we would have seen it in the comic book, but do you know anything about how it was presented in the comic?
Well, I know that she looked like a Barbie doll like everyone else. I'm just going to say, from what I saw, it looked like Double Trouble in the comics was female.
Okay.
So,
and that was the impression I got from watching this cartoon, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. I will say, I did love that voice actor. They did a phenomenal job. Everything they said was just dripping with, oh my God, I can't even describe it, but I loved it.
I love the chaotic neutral alignment.
Yes, thank you.
Of she's helping Catra out because she sees an advantage in doing so, and it gives her an opportunity. This character is driven by performance. If I can get away with this long enough and convince people long enough, then that gives me value as an entity, as a dramatic performer. I thought that was fantastic. It's one of the reasons I loved her so much. Like there's no malevolency as such. The situation presented itself, and it gave her an opportunity to act. And and when the tables turn and she realized that the rebellion is holding on to this giant weapon that's going to wipe out the Horde, she was like, well, deuces. I'm not on his side. I'm on my side. And
yeah, they say flat out, I am going with the side that's going to win. Now, I will add that I thought that Double Trouble's switch was... It took me an episode and a half to realize what happened. Because we have one of the guards coming in going, Double Trouble's escaped, and Double Trouble shows up in the fright zone and tells Catra, okay, now's our time to attack. And then sends a signal to Glimmer, and I was like, wait, did she just... Huh? It wasn't until the next episode where they admitted, okay, yeah, I'm on the rebellion side now. It's like, oh, okay, that's what happened. I guess I could have. I kind of wish there was a scene where maybe Glimmer or Shadow Weaver was talking to them, and you see a little flicker up down their face, like, oh, maybe I should think about this or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think I didn't care as much because I didn't think it was important at that point. Because the point of the whole turn was, I'm not helping you anymore, you're never going to win. They have a Death Star, essentially.
Yeah.
So, why she felt the need to have the Horde ambushed, I never understood. Like, you're not ingratiating yourself to the rebels. You're just fucking the Horde at that point. So I'm not, and I think that's why, like, normally these are the sort of things I go, well, I wish they'd shown more of that. And it's like, no, not only was this not, the only thing it served was to show the double nature of Double Trouble. You know, they needed something for her to do to show that she, you know, really was chaotic neutral and not to be trusted, which was effective in that sense. But in terms of the larger plot, as I said, didn't understand what the point of it was, and B, I mean, I guess they needed a way for the Horde to get wiped out so that we can move on to the next story. Because
yeah, I was gonna say the Horde is pretty much done. I mean, we have Scorpia who has fled. We find out that our three main Horde soldiers have essentially said, "Okay, you know what? We're done. Catcher's insane. We're out of here."
Right.
I don't think they're going to join the rebellion, but it's clear that they're not going to be in the fight anymore. So, and majority of the bots we see were more than likely destroyed by the Princess Alliance. So, yeah, season 5, we're going to get Horde Prime as our new baddie, which I'm actually quite glad for, because I don't think I could take another season of Catra bosses everyone around.
Yeah, this is what happened with Voltron after a couple of seasons of, and now at this point I don't remember who the main bad guy was, but the main bad guy from the first few seasons, it was like, well, if they don't defeat him and move on to somebody else, this is going to get boring real fast. This was the problem with a lot of cartoons in the 80s. For how many seasons, just as an example, for how many seasons He-Man ran, it was always He-Man versus Skeletor. G.I. Joe broke it up a little bit because you had Cobra Commander, who was there for a while, and then they brought in Serpentor, and Serpentor was kind of there, and they got rid of Cobra Commander in the G.I. Joe movie for a little bit, and they ended up bringing him back. Transformers was kind of the same thing. For the longest time, it was Megatron. Then they killed Megatron and recreated him with Galvatron. Then I want to say they got rid of Galvatron at one point, and somebody else took over. So they had to, every once in a while, the point is you got to update the bad guy and do something else.
Or like with the first thing of Power Rangers, like you can't just have them fighting Rita Repulsa the whole time. Eventually they bring in Lord Zed, and then they just keep bringing in more and more after that. Yeah, you have to keep building up the villain. People are not going to want to just see the same people get their butts kicked every episode.
Right, and so that goes back to like the He-Man thing, and I don't know if they did the same thing with She-Ra or how long it even lasted. I don't think it lasted all that long. But, you know, I think Skeletor was the only villain in the He-Man cartoon until the thing was canceled. So the fact that they've, you know, after 4 seasons, we've done all we're going to do with Hordak, and they've really taken the piss out of that character at this point. He is no longer... Go ahead.
I'll say, side note, I love the design of Horde Prime with the extra eyes on one side of the face. That was so cool.
He does have a very cool look. At this point, Hordak holds no menace. And they started with Catra attacking him, which was a great scene, by the way. She's flickering the lights, and she just jumps on him, and he rips out, I guess, like his battery. And you know, now he's having a hard time breathing at this point. And it's like, well, okay, well now there's no menace here. At this point, either Hordak has to kill Catra, or you've got to do away with Hordak. There's no more there is no more greater malevolency here. And Catra, they went from making her a sort of larger threat to the peace of the planet and the continued existence of the rebellion to she's just crazy. She is a lunatic who has driven everybody away, and in a lot of ways is responsible for the Horde falling apart.
Absolutely. And again, she's crazy as hell, but she is still a very well-defined character. I love we see all the scenes for breaking down and crying. We finally see her throwing away her weird crown headband thing, just flailing on the floor. This is a character. She knows that she is screwed up. She knows that she is to blame, but she can't accept it. We have that great scene with Double Trouble coming in, posing as all the different characters, saying it's like, everyone left, but you keep blaming all of them and saying it's their fault. You ever stop them gone? Maybe it's you. And I'm just going to say it. That was a very powerful message that I have seen so many people have that exact same problem. A few of them, exactly who I'm talking about.
Well, funny you mentioned that, and I'm not going to go too far into this, but it's very easy to write this show off as, this is just another example of woke culture. This is for a very niche audience, and you're half right. This is a very niche audience. It's, I will often bring up a thing to talk about when it makes the news for pissing somebody off. This was one of them. The other one was Insatiable. So I don't know, if She-Ra hadn't raised the ire of certain folks in the media for its, and I'm going to just use the term that's used in the media, its queer nature, I don't know if I would have bothered, but the other side of it is I have an 8-year-old daughter who was very interested in it, and it's one of those things that we watch together. So I might have watched it anyway. I don't know if I would have brought myself to talk about it, had it not been a thing initially, but I more than likely would have watched anyway because we like watching it together. And the point that I'm making here is it's very easy to write this off, and eye roll at it, but it's actually a very well-written show. Robert Winfrey and I, who's definitely a hypercritical guy, thought Voltron was very well-written. This is the second group of people, the second show under the DreamWorks banner. And not that it's a continuation of the Voltron story, they're two separate things, but they're bringing in high-quality writers and producers for these shows, and they haven't failed me yet. Between this and Voltron, and I'm not sure if there's any others under the same flag, these are not poorly written. These are not kiddie. They deal with some pretty hefty subjects.
Absolutely. And I love that the character development feels natural to the plot. This isn't a case of where they suddenly stop the episode so somebody can go into introspective, existential crisis or something. Yeah, it really does feel natural. And, let's talk about who probably has had some of the best character development, Scorpia. Yeah.
Boy, did Scorpia finally step into her own and out of being kind of a jokey side character. I tell you, the actress that plays her had a great line in this, and it's such a simple line, but her reading on it and how the art represented, how the animation was created for that character in that moment, I was like, wow, that could have been really dramatic and over the top, but they did it very subtle, and it was extremely effective. She's talking to Catra, and she's trying to get Catra to go after Entrapta, and without realizing that Catra is the reason Entrapta is in Beast Island. And they're kind of going back and forth, and finally, Catra says something really hurtful to Scorpia, and Scorpia just kind of looks down and goes, "You're a bad friend," and just walks away.
Well, I did kind of like, because Catra can't get Entrapta back, because by doing that, she'd have to admit to Hordak that Entrapta did not betray them. She's caught in her lies. Again, Catra is being very well done. She knows she is messed up. She knows that she has made every bad decision. But A, she can't admit it to herself, and B, she knows that if she admits to the others, she's going to lose everything. She has caught herself in a web of no win, and she cannot do anything to get out.
Yeah. There was once an episode of Raw where, after having won the Survivor Series and beaten the Invasion, Vince McMahon comes out gloating in his victory and says, "Nothing can stop me now," and out walks Ric Flair, who says, "I own half the company." And Vince McMahon very famously has this reaction of, like, he's tugging on his ear, and he conveys this source of, my whole world is falling apart. And they do a great job of that with Catra, to where, the longer this goes and the more people walk away from her, the more she, in this animated character, you do get the sense of her whole world is just collapsing around her. Mm-hmm. And the lies and fabrication she's built around herself and told herself that she is one way when she is, being shown to be another, is all starting, the ruse is starting to collapse around her. Like I said, the fabrication is all crumbling, and she's just left with this truth. And that's what made that scene with Double Trouble so effective, is they just put it right out there, and she couldn't run from it any further.
Yeah, but of course, in comes Horde Prime to provide her with it, not an excuse, but a chance to put it off just a little longer.
Well, they've spent 4 seasons of her screwing the rebellion every way but loose. And now now she's in this position of, my enemy of my enemy is my friend. They're all, in trouble with Horde Prime. So there'll be a lot of, what I talked about with Shadow Weaver, there'll be a lot of that tension just hanging in the air of somebody who's just been a bastard for 4 seasons and now has to be your ally or you're all going to die. Mm-hmm. So I'm anxious to see how that's used in Season 5. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of, well, I don't trust you, and I don't trust you either. Okay, well, we have to move on from this.
But again, going back to Scorpia, I love little scenes of her with Emily, the robot, where she's just finally confessing everything that's on her mind. She talks about her background as a princess. And yeah, everyone forgets, Scorpia is a princess. She was supposed to be part of the Princess Alliance, but her family basically sold her to the Horde.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, they say the Fright Zone's actually her territory. And now with the Horde gone, I'm curious to see if the writers follow up on that at all and see if she restores the Fright Zone to its former glory or whatever. See if there's more. I don't know who the Fright Zone people are. That's the other part of this is, we've met Perfuma and Mermista and everybody, but you don't really get a sense of who lives in these places. Unless it's one of those deals where, the heroes go into a village to save the people, which is how they met Double Trouble / Flutterina in the first place. Which, great use of the Flutterina character, by the way.
That did kind of, kill me a little inside, because Flutterina was probably one of the most useless characters in the 1980s series. She's like, I can fly and I can summon butterflies and I exist to be an action figure.
Yeah. There is some legit criticism of the old She-Ra cartoon being a bit silly. But just not really understanding its audience. Not really sure what they were going for here. They're like, oh, girls like butterflies. This will work. All right, sure. But they don't. But you don't. Like I said, that's like my only real complaint about some of how this is done is, while it's very character driven and relationship focused, which is good and what makes for good drama. I don't get a sense of how this world really operates. And, that's fine. We didn't get a chance to really know how every world that you experienced in Star Trek worked either. They just did, and you got enough of it to get the plot going, and that was all you needed. Mm-hmm. So, but there are certain things I wish they would explore a little bit further. So, like, if the people who lived in the Fright Zone were driven off by the Horde, I'd like to know where they went and if they're coming back. Just something to think about for the future.
Exactly.
But Scorpia, yeah, she they did a lot with her. She kind of was just Catra's sidekick for so long. It was nice to see them focus on her and give her something to do, even if she was being manipulated into bonding with the Garnet so they could get the Death Star working.
Not to mention really tackling the concept of a codependent, abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that's all I saw. I mean, we've joked on this show when we reviewed past series about Lyra and Bonboning, the whole concept of are they or are they not, and how often Scorpio says, yeah, we're going to be best friends. I'm like, best friends, world's biggest quotation marks. Just say what it really is. But watching her repeatedly get insulted and then just go back to saying, oh, she just needs to calm down. She didn't really mean it and everything. Again, I have seen that happen in real life. I have seen friends who have said that exact same crap, who have been, yelled at and verbally abused or worse. And they just keep saying, oh, it's okay. Once, things will get better. We're just going through a rough patch. And it was such a relief to have Scorpio wake up out of that. And I refuse to believe that the writers did not, intentionally make it like that they did not, it's like, no, they wrote it as an abusive relationship. They wrote it to be like that, to hit home for so many people. And it really, really moved me that they worked that so well.
100% agree. What did you think of the use of Light Hope as an actual character and not just an excuse to dump exposition?
That goes back to what I was saying earlier about my confusion with the first ones. I love this show, but the whole thing about the first ones and the first ones tech and everything, it's confusing. I'm sorry, it is. Especially when I hear first ones, I don't think technology. I hear first ones, I think more archaic magic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, just the term first ones, you don't think spaceship. Speaking of which, favorite line of the series was from Entrapta. Oh, look at that bud. What does it do? I'm going to touch it.
Yes, Entrapped is not that's one of my complaints about this season. Not nearly enough Entrapta.
Entrapta and Double Trouble are definitely my two favorite characters in this show. They are awesome.
They are amazing.
But it is a little confusing then when they talk about the first ones, basically wanting to turn the planet into a nuclear bomb. And it's so weird because they really haven't talked about, and if they have, I am clearly missing it. I don't think they've really talked about what the first ones were fighting. What were the first ones' enemies? So they're talking about, we're going to, the first ones did all this to destroy their enemies. I'm like, who were they fighting? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, in all reality, they were probably fighting Horde Prime.
I guess that makes sense. But again, love this series. But the whole backstory with Mara and the first ones is the only thing that I'm having trouble with because it is stupidly confusing.
I at some point think this has got to connect with the He-Man universe.
Oh, please. We've been saying this for the last few episodes, and we keep hearing the news about what's going on with the He-Man series and Kevin Smith's He-Man movie. I'm like, just connect them already and have Eternia show up.
Well, I feel like I'm just going to throw this out there as a bit of fantasy booking, but we'll see what happens. But I feel like the whole race of people started out on Eternia. They developed space travel, and then they came to this planet and they settled it, and it became Etheria. And and Horde Prime took notice of them, and for whatever the reasons were, they sent themselves into this pocket dimension to escape Horde Prime.
See, I was under the impression that Mara sent them into the pocket dimension to make sure that the first ones could, if they used the planet bomb, the heart of Etheria, then it wouldn't hurt any other planets.
Yeah, I mean, that might be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It was they developed this weapon to take out Horde Prime, and in doing so, it would have destroyed more planets than just wherever Horde Prime was coming from. And so she did what she did. I'm trying to make sense out of this convoluted story.
Yeah, see what I mean? Though that is a very confusing background. I mean, we're loving the character development. We're loving the fighting between the Horde and Bright Moon. We're loving the Princess Alliance. But when we start talking about the first ones in Mara, we're all going, "Duh."
Yeah, this is when we start talking about the first ones in Mara. I'm reminded of why I stopped playing Kingdom Hearts.
You know, there's actually like a 2-hour video that I had to watch before starting Kingdom Hearts 3 to remind me, wait, what's going on?
I played it once on, I think, the Wii, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have no idea what's happening. I just know I enjoy the mix-up with the Disney characters in this, but they're not saying... They may be saying English words, but none of them make any goddamn sense to me. I need to turn on something else.
No argument. I am a giant Kingdom Hearts fan, but I will never once, step in and say, it's not that confusing. No, it is. I love it, but it is a very convoluted story.
Yeah. The narrative of Kingdom Hearts is definitely reminiscent of the narrative of She-Ra, where they have cocked up and convoluted this story to where it's very hard to follow when you get to that level. Like, the ground floor detail is fine enough. Like, when you're, as you said, when you're keeping up with the relationships or whatever, that's all easy to follow. When it gets into the lore, it's like, especially when the episode Hero, where they explain all that, and they have Raz as the sort of the unreliable narrator who keeps floating in and out of time. Well, it was visually interesting and makes Raz kind of a fun character to follow around and see what she's talking about. And I like little things like, like you promised today you would make the pie with me. Why today? Because today's the day. Like, she's very Yoda-ish, which I guess was probably their analog to create this character. However, as an unreliable narrator is not a great place to dump exposition.
I will say that I like the idea that Roz is, when she's getting her flashes, it's not through time constraint. I love that she's like, oh, wait, is this the first day I met you? Oh, okay, so this is the first day I met you. She has, it's kind of reminding me of what they did with Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen, that time is not seen as linear to them, or to him. And I think it's kind of the same way with Roz. Time is not one point A to point B. She's keeps going in and out of different periods, and she has to keep reminding herself, okay, so where in the past am I now? Where in the future am I now? And I really like that. It's confusing as hell, but I like it.
So the last thing I want to bring up here, the last two things, is because we need to talk about Glimmer's dad being found or whatever, and that whole episode, but this was bizarrely not a heavy She-Ra season, which I think is good, and they've done that with Voltron as well, where they took the emphasis. They would spend at least part of a season taking the emphasis off of Voltron. They were there, they were doing Voltron things, but they had to focus on other parts of the story in order to get to the next big chapter. And while I would not call the 13 episodes of this season of She-Ra transitional, I feel like this is the end of Book 1. And whatever Season 5 turns out to be is the beginning of Book 2. But in doing so, they really minimized a lot of She-Ra. You have the little bits of her dealing with Light Hope, which is what we were talking about a few minutes ago, as far as Light Hope just stopped being just an AI with whose purpose is to dump exposition, and kind of became a real character with an agenda, which I thought was an interesting way to go. But besides all that, you have that bit of it focuses on Adora and She-Ra, but the rest of it, she does there to do action stuff, but the rest of it, there's so much with Glimmer and Scorpion, Catra, and Double Trouble that there isn't a lot of focus on Adora up until the very end, where, with the big theme of this season comes to a head. It's her in conflict with Glimmer, and just two different points of view in conflict with one another. So you have She-Ra, who's come to realize that if they unleash the heart of Etheria, they're going to blow the planet up. And you have Glimmer, who's trying to prove her mettle, and they are clashing. And then... trying to figure out where I was going with this. But Let me so I don't confuse myself. Let me stop there and think. What did you think of their use of She-Ra this season, and and how things came to a head at the end?
Well, again, you're right. We saw a lot more development of the other characters, but again, it felt natural. I love that we get an episode with Perfuma getting character development.
Yeah, she couldn't make the cactuses work.
Yeah, no, that was actually a great scene when she's talking about that and how she meditates and she's very zen and everything. And again, it feels natural. Side note, I guess they couldn't pay Gina Davis to stay on the show for much longer because Huntara is bye-bye. I guess Oscar-nominated actresses are not cheap.
She had work to do with the next season of Glow.
I actually don't watch Glow, so I'll take your word for it.
No, I'm just making things up now.
Oh, okay. No, I had no idea what. Just like I was just like, oh, okay. Literally, when she says, "I need to stay here in the desert," kind of fix things up. All I could think was, "Oh, they can't afford Gina Davis anymore." But yeah, we get all these great scenes with all these other characters. Hell, we get some good development out of Mermista.
That was a sad episode, man.
Yeah, it was, but I did love her bit of taking on, just kind of channeling murder mystery novels. Like, and with every time the lightning starts, like, how are you doing that? I practiced at home. Lightning crashes. Oh my god, that was so funny. But yeah, it was very sad when you find out that her kingdom has fallen, and it was all, everything was a distraction. Again, I'm going back to Watchmen. I love they're like, we'll stop your invasion of Salinas, and Double Trouble's like, stop it. It's already done. Side note, you're betraying your bingo card that you haven't sung Seahawks song yet.
I enjoyed that episode. I don't need to sing it.
Yeah, I know, but you always say, I actually was willing to bet, if Robert and I were talking, I would have been willing to bet him that you would have started off this review singing the It's Great to Be Friends with Friends song.
Sometimes the muse strikes me, and sometimes it doesn't. That's all I can tell you.
What are you talking about? You started off our Zombieland 2 review by doing that freaking zombie chant from the Disney zombie movie.
Yes, the muse struck me.
Muse needs to be fired.
I cannot tell you when the muse strikes. It just does.
Yeah, no, that scene did that episode was actually, again, it was very sad to see Salinas. Again, I'm trying to remember how many letters were in the word. But I did like the episode of Seahawk, Bo, and Swiftwind bonding. Oh my god, how did Swiftwind go from being just one of the most arbitrary characters in the A series being so hilarious?
Oh yeah, and I kicked him. So good. And that's one of the nice things about the show is that while it can get kind of up its own ass with with the lore or whatever, it there is a sense of humor about it. It oscillates between being serious and not science, but just fantastical with being comedic, and it blends the two nicely. I know where I was going with this now. This whole thing leads to the end of She-Ra, right? Adora's in the wake of trying to turn the Death Star off, is what I'm calling it, the heart of Etheria. Mm-hmm. The sword shatters, and to her knowledge, without the sword, she can no longer be She-Ra, so she thinks She-Ra is gone. So that's where we are. That's where we're left. Horde, they're out of the Despondus universe. Horde Prime has Glimmer and Catra. There is no She-Ra, and nobody knows what to do next.
The whole Heart of Etheria thing still confuses me, because even if they were trying to fight Horde Prime, I'll go ahead and give you that. Did they know that it was... and obviously they knew it was going to destroy the planet. Did the first ones really think that the best idea was, going full Pokemon move self-destruct?
Did the First Order think that putting a cannon in the middle of a planet and destroying a galaxy was the best use of resources?
That's one way to put it. That's my biggest problem right now. Is that okay? So even if you do accept the fact that the first ones were fighting against Horde Prime, and that they basically engineered the planet to take him out. I'm sort of going, but we have seen no motivation, and again, it's kind of hard to when the only first ones we really know about are Mara and Light Hope, about why they would, do this whole it's like we're going down and we're taking them with us. I want to know more about why they thought that was the only solution, because it's just very bizarre.
Yeah, I couldn't begin to tell you, but I thought it was a bold move to do away with She-Ra in She-Ra's own show. I'm guaranteeing you that she's gonna find out that She-Ra is whoever is destined to be She-Ra. This is a birthright, and you have the power within you. The weapon becomes just a conduit. It's a conduit, Carlos Conduit. You don't know what I'm talking about.
We're going Thor Ragnarok with this.
Yeah, I have to imagine that's the direction. Or somewhere out there is a cosmic armory filled with the power of Grayskull swords. So, one of the two. Either, or the third option is she's got to find whoever the sorcerer of Grayskull is to bless another weapon, and then she'll be able to call on the power of She-Ra. The
Egyptian bird lady. Yep.
Yeah, well, it's going in one of those three directions for sure. As we were talking, as we end up here, I looked to see if they had decided to do a season 5 yet. Nothing has been announced, but I would imagine. I mean, like I said, Voltron ran 7 or 8 seasons before they finally called it quits. So I would like to see them go at least that long before calling it a day.
Now, refresh my memory. Did the Voltron seasons actually last only 10 to 13, like what we've been getting, or did they go longer? Do you remember?
So like the first 1 or 2 seasons went the full 13, and then they did a bunch of half seasons. They were like 6 and 7 seasons apiece. Then the last 2, I feel like they went the full 13 again.
Okay, because the way I'm actually looking at this right now is that we had season 1, but when Netflix calls season 2 and season 3, I'm grouping together into season 2, and what we just got done, which they're calling season 4, I say was season 3.
I agree with you. I feel like there's really only been 3 seasons of this, and that this is just Netflix's weird way of breaking things up over time, which I don't know. I don't know if statistically people are more willing to binge 6, for a show like this. I think it's different when you're dealing with an adult audience, which tend to average around 10 episodes. And I know with the Marvel shows, Robert and I, our biggest criticism of the Marvel shows was 10 episodes suited those series a lot better than 13 did. 13 always felt like 3 episodes too long.
Agreed.
But for this, they might be thinking, well, this is supposed to be a kid audience, and their attention span may not get to 13. I mean, that was a long morning. We got up at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think we were done by about noon to get through the whole thing. And we just, like I said, we just tore through it. So, I don't know. I think they experiment with different things. I know they have analytics. I think the mark of a successful streaming site is how long people will sit and watch these in one session. So, they might be people when it's 13 episodes, people might quit halfway through and then pick it up again later. I don't know. I don't know what their data is telling them, but they seem to be they seem like they haven't quite figured it out yet. What the magic is. The other side of it might be what they feel like they can get out of DreamWorks at a clip. The DreamWorks man said, well, if we want to keep striking while the iron's hot, give us what you got. And we've only got 6 or 7 episodes done. We still got others. We still got the whole half of the season to go. Like, fuck it, we'll just release half a season then. So, could be any number of things. overall, I would say, like I said, this show gets better and better every season, however you're defining that. And I think this is the best one yet. I think this had the most grist for the mill. I think it had the most interesting character development. There was some bold moves in the narrative. And my only complaint is the up-its-own-ass lore and mythology of the first ones, which, at the very least, makes me curious to see what they're going to do next.
What we really need, I know the series is dedicated to keeping a lot of the backstory hidden and making sure that we only know what Adora knows. But we really need a flashback episode with the first ones. We need an episode completely removed from Adora, Glimmer, and all of them, and just centered totally around the first one, so we can get a better understanding of what was going through their heads.
I think that's coming.
I hope so.
I think that's coming. I think we'll eventually get a fuller, more richer explanation of what's going on. You know, how we got to be where we are right now. So we'll see. Again, your thoughts overall, though.
You're absolutely right. The show is getting better and better. They're taking a lot of chances, not only with story-wise, but I would say also with, as I'm sure other people on this network would call it, the wokeness. But it's paying off. Again, nothing really feels like it's being shoehorned in. The natural relationships, the chemistry between the characters, the development of their story arcs, it all feels natural. Again, even we were talking about the whole thing with Double Trouble being, non-binary. Even that didn't come across as, well, I mean, it was maybe a little weird on some scale, but even that's like, nope, that seems like that would, be the way it would go. That seems,
that's
totally
why
normal.
That's why I brought up the thing about Black Mirror was, if you suddenly have the ability to be any gender you want, any race you want, when you are not confined by the structures of biology, then all bets are off. Why can't you can be gay, you can be straight, you can be both. You are defined by your choices and no longer by random acts of biology. So I think a character who has that kind of power, I think that absolutely tracks. I think it would make sense for her to be like, I'm just whatever I want to be at that moment.
I agree. And again, I am loving what they're doing. I love the updates that we're getting to the characters from the 1980s. We were talking about how useless Flutterina was the character. They made frickin' Flutterina an interesting character. Now all we need is Sweet Bee and Peekaboo, and everything's complete.
You are much more familiar with these characters than I am.
I'm a child of the late 80s, early 90s. What are you going to do?
All right. All right, so that's that. I think that wraps up our... Sorry, my mouse just died. I think that wraps up our coverage of She-Ra Season 4.
Yep. Yeah, Netflix, according to Netflix, Season 4. According to me, Season 3.
Terrific.
All
right.
We weren't confused enough.
Go ahead. I gotta throw my mic down for a second, but go ahead and do your plugs. Also, if you're interested in hearing Alexis and I again, in 2 weeks, we will be getting together for another one of these afternoon sessions to discuss the Lady and the Tramp movie.
I haven't had a chance to watch that yet because my mom wants to see it, and my parents are refusing to get Disney Plus for one reason or another. So I have to wait for her to come over and watch it with me.
Okay, we're gonna watch it on Black Friday evening. All right, go ahead. I gotta throw my headphones down for a second. Go ahead and do your plugs.
Okay, I gotta tell you, the first time you said it, I thought you said your mouth died. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? But yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. We are officially done with the 2019 Comic-Con season. We ended with Anime Week in Atlanta and Grand Rapids Comic-Con. Great shows. We had a lot of fun. I am so glad to be off the road, though, especially with the winter coming in. So, what's next for us? Well, we are going to be doing our big first holiday sale, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We are going to be doing 20% off everything in both our Etsy store and our Handmade at Amazon store. I am currently adding all of our new merchandise to that. Tons of wire wrap new dies, a few brand new Monopoly and Clue bracelets, and a handful of our new Scrabble tile ribbon chokers. Blech, and I tripped over my own tongue there. Featuring some artwork, featuring artwork inspired by Steven Universe and The Mandalorian. By the way, great show. Loving it. Can't wait for us to review it. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and under protest Twitter. And again, we have stores on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and cheap.
All right. Tonight on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we'll be reviewing Dragon Force, Extreme Power Metal. Tomorrow... What are we doing tomorrow?
You're the keeper of the calendar, not me.
Yeah. Tomorrow is The Boys, Season 1. Did you ever get around to watching The Boys?
No, not yet.
It's really, really good.
I have way too much on my to-watch list. I haven't even started Good Omens yet.
Oh, you haven't seen Good Omens yet?
I want to finish the book.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we had a really good conversation about it. Myself, Al Sedano, and Jesse. We enjoyed the hell out of that. That's up in our archives if people are interested. So this Thursday, here's what we've done this week. We did The Boys, Volume 1, Name of the Game. That was Jesse and Gavin Napier from the Casual Heroes. Robert and I, once again, went over 2 hours. Only 2 hours and 20 minutes this time, because we had a pretty good discussion about Ford versus Ferrari, but we also had to talk about the Charlie's Angels thing and Elizabeth Banks and 37 Spider-Man movies and all of that.
Sorry again, I had to bail on the Doctor Sleep review, by the way.
It's fine. It only went 3 hours. It's fine.
Well, what can I say? I got literally trapped in a hotel with bed bugs.
Yuck. This Saturday, after NXT War Games concludes, myself and Robert Winfrey will be doing boxing coverage of Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2 on pay-per-view. You can check that out. Next week, we're going to bring the motherfucking ruckus. You ready, Alexis Hejna? You ready to bring the motherfucking ruckus?
Maybe.
On Monday, TV Party Tonight, Wu-Tang, an American Saga, which is the first season's on Hulu right now. We're also going to be doing something interesting here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, part 1 of a series. Myself and Pat Mullen will be taking the long, strange trip through the history of heavyweight boxing. So, starting with the black and white era. So he sent me a whole bunch of stuff I got to watch. We're going to talk about it then. On the 26th, we've got Survivor Series weekend. We'll talk about NXT War Games, and Survivor Series. Brand Supremacy is what they're calling it. And then finally, myself and Jesse Starcher, the night before Thanksgiving, we will do our annual turkey show. This year, not something silly, but something amazing. Wu-Tang Clan. Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. So go ahead and check that out. And as I said, we've got Teen Titans Book 1 by Jeff Johns, Knives Out on December 3rd, Rings of Saturn, get 'em, and December 4th, myself and Alexis Hejna will be talking Lady and the Tramp. Thursday, Teen Titans Season 2, and then Saturday, myself and Robert Winfrey will be doing some coverage for UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Rosenstruck. Boom, heavyweights.
So how much is Robert rejoicing that you're not requiring him to review Frozen 2?
He's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. He, I think it was one of those deals where we both just didn't. It became a thing of there just wasn't room on the calendar anymore, and so it was like, why put ourselves through this when there's no room? And I didn't want to push to try to create room for it. So,
well, not to mention with next week being Thanksgiving and all, we probably do deserve just the tiniest of a break.
Well, that's the other thing is I actually I'm working, and my wife was like, "Do you want me to wait to take the kids to go see Frozen 2, or are you going to see it with us?" I'm like, "I can't. I'm working, and if you wait for me to see it, the kids are never going to see this thing. So just go, I tell you." And she was like, "All right, we'll just go without you." I mean, it's one of those where if I was off, I would go, and I would happily go and take my kids, but. If you're asking me personally, like, do I care? Not really. I'm kind of, I saw the first Frozen. It was fine. It made $1 billion, so of course they're going to do a second one. But, do you think I have any earthly urge to go see it? Not really.
Yeah. I'm probably going to see it for the same reason I sat through Batman v Superman. Because I feel I have an obligation so I can actually discuss it with my customers.
Yeah.
I mean, do you realize how many people still cosplay as Elsa and Anna? There is already, the last 2 shows I did, Atlanta and Grand Rapids, there were already at least a dozen people cosplaying, wearing their outfits from Frozen 2. They designed them from the trailers and from the toys.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, you know that new periwinkle jacket and pants that Elsa's wearing in the trailer?
Mm-hmm.
That is the new popular cosplay, and they got the details down. Again, all they had were the dolls and the trailers for references.
Like I said, if it's one of those things where there's the benefit of having seen it, so that in your case you can talk about it with your customers. Sure. And if we were doing it on the podcast, I'd be going to see it, and I wouldn't complain about it. I think. Independent. Once I said we're not doing it, I was like, okay, well, there went any urge for me to go see this thing.
I'll give you that. I'm actually going to go see Dr. Sleep this weekend. Since I didn't get a chance to see it because of the bed bugs, my husband does want to see it. So I said, okay, look, how about we just hold off and we'll go see it over, the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Enjoy. It's 2/3 of a good movie.
That's what I've heard.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us here on TV Party tonight. I want to thank Alexis Hejna for hanging out with me for an hour and reviewing Season 4. Hopefully we'll be back for Season 5. Be well, be safe, and behave.
The future of TV is here. We combine your favorite things like live TV, on-demand titles, and access to Netflix and HBO in one place with a voice remote that lets you find everything easily. Introducing AT&T TV. That's televisionary.
Available in select areas. Requires high-speed internet. Recommend minimum 8 megabytes per second per screen for optimal viewing. Limit 3 concurrent AT&T streams. Netflix and HBO subscriptions and Google login required. Restrictions apply.
Is your cell phone bill out of control? Then this is your wake-up call. The new TracFone Wireless gives you unlimited talk and text starting at $20 a month, no contract, plus unlimited carryover data with active service. Yep, the new TracFone Wireless. Now you're in control. See terms and conditions at TracFone.com.